We need to bow down to him this early in the piece. Hoyney, a great declaration last week. We played it last night again just to remind everybody that you weren't sucked in. But for those who didn't hear it, here it is.
Just don't get sucked in right now to assuming that this team is flying with what they're doing offensively. Their ball movement from one end of the ground to the other is the fourth worst in the competition at the moment.
Yep.
4 weeks in. It's not what it was at the back end of last year. Their ability to be able to punish you on turnover on the back end of last year was top 3, top 4 in the competition. Right now, it's 15th. Their ability to be able to punish you. That's not going to get the job done as the year goes on. And he knows all this. He's not silly. He knows all this. If we revisit this in 4 to 6 weeks,
and it hasn't improved,
and this stays as it is, be interested to see what the win-loss ratio is at about round 10.
Well, it did mean there was a loss on the weekend. Nostradamus picked it.
He did indeed. Welcome to you, Hoyney.
Hello, G. Whitey, good to have you back 2 weeks in a row.
Have you polished up the crystal balls and having another look for us?
Nah, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But I think it's just a good sort of reflection of not to get sucked into the W's and L's, which we talk about and we have on this show for 2.5 years. We always look at the big picture, not just what happened necessarily on the weekend with the W's and L's. And Sam Mitchell had been speaking about it, to be fair, for quite a while. It's just that a lot of people didn't want to believe it or didn't believe in him, in what he was saying. But
have you got another side that the W and the L actually misrepresent how well or how badly they are going?
To come.
Okay, stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, let's get stuck into it.
On the agenda.
I don't do much talking in this next hour, but I did want to ask you what MIP means, because it is something that you want to talk about.
Yeah, and that's the overall observation that we'll start with tonight. MIP, most important player. And I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks because 3 or 4 weeks ago, we put on the agenda about Sam Walsh. And and talking about him being Carlton's most valuable player. Probably should have said that he's their most important player. Wiedering, Cripps, the Curnow, these guys are potentially their most valuable. But the way 2025's footy is going, Sam Walsh will determine, or is likely to determine how far this team goes throughout 25. So we got a lot of feedback on the text going, Walsh isn't their most valuable, and it's like, okay. Probably should have said most important player. So I've been waiting to go for this for a couple of weeks. So we're going to have a look competition-wide at a few clubs and a few different players around potentially who is your most important player for this 25 campaign. Yep. And I know this is a favourite topic of yours with Taggers coming back in, given the midfield role that you played throughout your career, and you love seeing the gun mids getting challenged for a rare occasion.
Bit of torture occasionally.
So you got Toby Bedford, Jordan, George Hewitt's going really well in that aspect. Windhager, Tom Atkins can do it. Nash can do it at times. So there's a few around the competition, so this is a sample size of 2.5 years. Okay, so when a player rates in the top 5 on the ground, the win-loss record for that team, as opposed to when he doesn't rate in the top 5 on the ground and the win-loss. So is he actually important to your overall success or not? So these 10 names are those that are important. So we'll start in that area. Is
this a barometer player?
It could be a barometer player. And these are the players that I'd be going straight for as an opposition team. Yep. Some are obvious. Some are not. So Jack Sinclair, obvious. He comes out as the number 1 player in the competition between St Kilda's win-loss record when he's top 5 to when he's not. When he's top 5 on the ground, they win 80% of matches. When he's not, they're winning 30% of matches over the last 2.5. How much of a
difference between him and Wanganeen Miller?
No, a fair difference at this stage.
So we're tagging Sinclair.
So going straight for Sinclair. The interesting one for Gold Coast, Took Miller. So when Took Miller over the last 2.5 years been top 5, they've won 8 of 10 games. When he hasn't, they win 1 in every 3.
Does that matter now that he's changed role?
No.
Nope.
No. And our rating system, we mentioned him last week, is top 10 in the competition at the moment. Caleb Sarong, you're going straight to him. I think if you're, I'll be interested to see where Hayden Young comes out in this over the next.
I'll be interested
6
to
to
see
10
where
weeks.
Jack Viney goes on the weekend, whether he goes straight to Caleb Sarong.
So 2.5 years. Freo have won a lot of games in 2.5 years. When he's not top 5 on the ground, they're winning 25% of matches. Gee. So and when he is, they're winning 7 out of 10 games. So it's a big difference. Isaac Heaney, we're probably not really surprised with that. Brisbane is a surprise here.
I'm going McCluggage.
Mm.
And we talked about Hugh McCluggage and Kingy put him on the radar a little while ago, and I would go there. But Cam Rayner, for the last 2.5 years, when he's been top 5 on the ground, which is 12 times, Brisbane haven't lost when he's been top 5 on the ground. When he isn't top 5 on the ground, they're winning 6 out of every 10 games, which they've won a lot of games of footy for for 2.5 years, so that's not a surprise. Zach Butters isn't a surprise for Port Adelaide. Either is Paddy Cripps. This one's really interesting, and he's going to be so important for Collingwood for the next 4 months, and that's Jordan De Goey. 2.5 years worth when he's been top 5 on the ground. Collingwood have lost once in 2.5 years, so it is critical that they almost treat this guy how Geelong have treated Patrick Dangerfield for the last couple of years.
Coming back this Thursday, according to the Spies.
And you know what? And if he has another little bit of an injury and he misses 6 or 7 weeks in the middle of the year, so be it.
Yep.
Just get
him right.
this guy right from round 17 to 18 onwards. That's all you need. Ed Richards for the Dogs. His difference between when he's top 5 and when he's not. So when he's top 5 on the ground, the Dogs are winning 75% of matches. When he's not, they're an under 50-50 team in the comp.
He's flying, Ed.
And then LDU. So when LDU has not been top 5 on the ground, North have only won 1 game. And they've only won 8 games, 9 games in the last 2 of the years. But when he hasn't been top 5 on the ground, they only won
So
once.
they can't win unless he plays.
Correct. So if you're George Hewitt Friday, where are you going?
Take him out.
You're going straight to LDU. Now, these are a handful of players where their performances haven't necessarily impacted the W or the L. So Connor Rosie, we've spoken a lot about him.
Yep.
Zach Butters, his difference significantly impacts the game. Rosie doesn't. Libba doesn't necessarily impact the game too much. When he's actually top 5 on the ground, they're 50-50. When he's not top 5 on the ground, they're also 50-50. Will Day, a lot of talk about Will Day at the moment. Jai Newcomb has a high level of importance to him. Will Day, not so much. People keep talking, but Will Day wasn't there in the final series last year. Yeah, I get that. He wasn't there the first final against the Dogs, and they won it by 8 goals as well. And Sam Mitchell said, we lost by 10 goals on the weekend. It wasn't just Will Day. There's a lot of other issues going on there. Clayton Oliver, Zach Merritt, and I think that's probably more full credit to Zach Merritt, just his performance actually doesn't change. And Harry Sheasel, that's why you send someone to LDU and not someone to Harry Sheasel. I'm seat 1A in the Harry Sheasel bandwagon, but just his performances between wins and losses doesn't actually differentiate too much. The 2 of interest for me moving forward are 2 of the contenders this year. So Jordan Dawson. So this is the last 2.5 years. Again, Adelaide have won, some games of footy here. When he's been top 5 on the ground, which has been 17 times in the last 2.5 years, Adelaide have only won 5 games. When he hasn't been top 5 on the ground, they're a greater than 50-50 team in that period. So your main threat for the opposition moving forward for Adelaide is Isaac Rankin.
Yep.
It's not Dawson. Dawson's a very good player.
What it says to me, though, they've got to change Dawson's role.
Potentially. Yeah, absolutely. Potentially.
Would you put him back to halfback?
I'd consider it, given that I think that's their weakest line at the present time. I'd absolutely consider it, but this information makes me consider it more.
And then the other one for GWS, Josh Kelly.
Yep.
So, again, they've won a lot of games of footy the last 2.5 years. When he's top 5 on the ground, which has happened 16 times, GWS have only won 8. When he hasn't been top 5 on the ground, they've won 70% of matches.
There's one name there that isn't on your list. Ruckman.
Yes.
No Max Gawn.
No Ruckman. Full stop.
No,
we haven't got. We've got a few rucks in there, but they're not having the impact either way from a positive or from a negative sense. So Kieran Briggs is in there, mid-table in terms of the impact between wins and losses. Max is in there, doesn't really differentiate too much. I know where you're coming from, and we've spoken a lot about the impact of ruckman and what you actually pay for them. A lot of these names that are appealing, both either in the positive sense or the negative sense, to actually have a bit of a look at, are either the midfielders or the flankers that are going to determine largely the success of your footy club in 2025.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Max and Briggs, obviously, but I think it's overs what's attributed to their output. As against, if Max played like he did in the prelim final on a regular basis, went forward and kicked a lot of goals, and TDK went forward and kicked a few goals, it's going to change their profile significantly. But it's such a random event in the ruck and stoppages that it's impossible to attribute clearances to ruckman almost as if it's a law unto itself.
And I think that, the thing that has separated Max from everyone else over the last 10 years or so is what he does outside of the ruck contest. His ability to get back, intercept mark, beat along down the line, target both offensively and defensively, all that other stuff.
That's why Nat Nui was such an unusual beast.
Correct.
Because he was a clearance machine himself.
Yep. So just a different way to look at it. We'll keep a track of this throughout the 2025 season as well. I think it's just a different way to actually appreciate the overall impact individuals are having at your footy club and potentially who you go after as an opposition team moving forward.
All right, let's move on.
Good start from Hoyney.
Yeah, very strong. Do you like barometer player?
Yeah, I like it, but if Hoyney wants to go MIP, I'm running with Hoyney.
Fair enough too. Where do you want to head next? Do you want to go straight into the Hawks or the Hitmen?
No, we'll go straight into the Hawks. So, we just talked about them last week and offensively a couple of concerns that are going on at the moment. In particular, their ball movement game, which is the fourth worst ball movement game in the comp, from D50 to forward 50 in the comp at the moment. Last year, top 5.
Where are they breaking down, Hoyney?
Towards the back end of the year. So full credit to Port Adelaide on the weekend for forcing him to go as slow as we have seen, with ball in hand, that is, as slow as we have seen for Hawthorn for 12 months, and forcing him to play long, straight line, direct to goal footy more than we have seen for Hawthorn for 12 months as well. So they didn't get the game. They didn't get their change of angles, type of game going.
That's actually abbreviated by LDL, long down the line. When I thought about it, I thought you were doing my lipid score.
No, we're not. No, we're not doing that. Sorry, G. But so with this ball movement issue, so they've got two issues at the moment. This ball movement game. Massimo D'Ambrosio.
Yep.
So we pushed for him last year, thought he should have been recognised as an All-Australian wingman. Clearly the best wingman in the competition last year. His ability to be able to win the footy both in contest, but then more so his ability to be creative and use the footy was so damaging. Top 20 player in the competition last year. Currently 5 weeks into the season, he's outside the top 150 in the competition. And
because he's been run with,
no,
or because he's having a bad year?
No, and the main issue we talked about last week, ball use. That is the game. Last year, he's in the top 75 players in the comp for impact with how he used the footy. This year, he's 239th in the comp. So that wing role and that aggressive wing role that he played last year significantly impacted, in a positive sense, Hawthorn's ability to be able to move the ball from one end of the ground to the other. That ball use and that poor ball use rating it's not all on Massimo. Clearly it's not. But they've got to get him going and get him more impactful with ball in hand to get, to try and get a weapon which they had on the competition last year, with the ability for him to play that wing role.
Are clubs treating Hawthorn differently with more pressure on the outside of the corridor players?
I think, and again, I find Sam Mitchell really interesting to listen to because he gives you a lot, and I think he was aware. I think everyone in the competition was aware that they were going to get targeted this off season. That's why we see so often teams that get into a run late in a season go on and have significant success, because it's hard to pick it apart late.
Yep.
But if you know what's coming over a 5-month period, you can pick it apart. It's what's so hard to go back to back. You can pick it apart. Now everyone knows, and the eyes are a dead set giveaway. We're going to talk about GWS later on. The eyes are a dead set giveaway with Hawthorn when they want to get the footy. They want to get it, and they straight away look for a 45 change of angles play. Change of angles play. They don't want to go long down the line, direct to goal, straight line footy, and that played into Massimo's game last year. That's why he was so damaging on that wing area. But for opposition teams to go to work on that, know that that's what they want to play. We're only 5 weeks in. The challenge for Hawthorn is to try and correct that. And the other challenge for Hawthorn, that's point number 2, is what is going on from a contest perspective in their D50. They have lost contest in their D50 4 out of 5 games. To put that into context, you very, very rarely ever lose contest in your own D50 because you've probably got more numbers behind the footy than what the opposition do.
Have you got the breakdown on where they're losing the contest?
So 5 games, they've lost it 4 times. In the last 2.5 years, there's only been one other team that's done that in a 5-game period.
Yeah.
West Coast. have done that.
Damaging. But can you tell me, given there's 4 or 5 elements
So
to
ground ball
contest
stuff.
with, ground
ball stuff. So
Okay.
so give them full credit for how they're defending one-on-one stuff. So 62 one-on-one contests Hawthorn this year.
Yep.
They've only lost 8. They've been outmarked twice. So
Right.
full credit.
It's all on the deck.
Full credit. Get the footy on the deck. That is the challenge. And
Are
that's going
they
to be
too big down there?
that is going to be the interesting challenge this Monday. That's going to be an interesting challenge this Monday against a team who thrives on ground ball stuff.
Yeah, well,
in there. Again, we're round 5. They're 4-1. A lot of areas to improve, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but this is just interesting to track over the next couple of weeks.
So, Gerard, there's a couple of things to come out of that I want to ask you. We saw a team last year, Sydney, jump out of the blocks and play almost unbeatable football.
And
at
Hoyney
times.
warned us against us. They've gone too early.
Well, this is the thing: is that can you play a brand of football that's not necessarily the brand you're going to play later in the year, so you can't get exposed, or you're not playing dead, but can you have tricks up your sleeve that you can integrate as the season goes, so you're not that team? Because Sydney's not the only example. There's plenty of examples where a team will jump out of the blocks, but there's enough time to find a way to beat that before the season finishes. To Hoyney's point about you make your run late and people haven't got the time to find the kryptonite to stop it.
I'm of the belief that you've got a style that can win a flag. You've got a style that can win a flag, whether it's in round 5 or round 10. But I am of the belief that if that style's not chaos, you're not going to win it. And if the Swans were in a control mode for most of the year, which they were, and they get put into a chaos game, then they get exposed. And I think they were exposed before the finals, but they just recover. You've got the numbers on the control versus chaos, Hoyney.
Yeah, so last 5 years, home and away, 50-50 in terms of 50% of games are controlled, 50% of chaos, and in finals it gets close to 80% are on the deck. So that's just interesting to sort of track with Hawthorn over the next few weeks.
All right, what about the Brisbane Lions, who gave up essentially a 40-point head start to the Bulldogs before turning on Norwood?
Yeah, so this is the other team that we'll just put on watch at the moment. So 5-0, and again, like these footy clubs, they know exactly what's going on inside their four walls. As I said about Sam Mitchell, they try and tell you. It's just whether or not you're listening to what they're actually trying to tell you. So Brisbane 5-0 with significant room for improvement. And at this stage last year, when they were, I don't know what they were, 2-4, whatever they were, we talked about how their profile was. It was okay, and and they were doing a lot right. And it's just, if you hold the line, naturally results will change, and the rest is history with the Lions. But right now, their profile this year at round 5, despite being 5-0, isn't as strong as what it was this time last year when they were 2-4, 2-3, 2-4. So offensively at the moment, when they win the footy and getting that on the scoreboard, they're number 11. This time last year, they're number 6. Defending that, they're number 8. This time last year, they're number 3. So again, the win-loss wasn't there last year. The win-loss is there this year. Their ability to punish you off turnover, last year number 1 and against number 1. This year they're 10 and 9. So their forward 50 is currently not functioning as well as what it has for a little while. And last year they had similar issues at this stage of the year. Their accuracy this year is really good. Their accuracy last year was poor. That was a major thing that was actually holding them back. And it eventually fixed up. Their clearance game is still in really good shape. That is the number 1 positive at the moment. But in terms of just big picture stuff, which again, that's all we talk about on the show. We don't get sucked into W's and L's.
We don't put the hats on, party hats on until round 6.
Yes, we're bringing them in next Tuesday. And the balloons are in next Tuesday. But just in terms of their profile at the moment, they would know this. It needs to improve. Yep. Otherwise, if we're talking about this in 5 or 6 weeks' time and it is the same, again, like Hawthorn, it'll be interesting to see whether or not the win-loss record is what it currently is at the moment.
Okay, Hoyney, you've opened up the door. Currently, and it's a bit skew-if because of different games, it's Lions, Suns, Giants, Collingwood, Hawthorn, Cats, Crows, Fremantle in 8th position. If you did a profile ladder rather than a win-loss ladder, who would you be most impressed with of the top 8?
So top 3 would be Gold Coast, Geelong, Collingwood.
Right up.
Answered that one pretty
quickly. That's why he's the smartest man in football. Port Adelaide.
Profile-wise?
Yep.
No, need some work.
Okay, Dogs.
Yep, not getting
Last
sucked into
year
that.
they were the best profile team.
No, Dogs mid-table at the moment.
Saints.
Saints also mid-table.
Swans,
Swans, we got them in 13th at the moment.
Dockers,
Dockers 12th.
Crows.
Crows are 5th.
Okay.
At the
I've
moment.
got one club I went to ask, Giants.
Giants are 5th as well. They're equal with the Crows.
Okay, the producer barracks for Collingwood, and he's just yelled in my ears, quickly, Collingwood.
So this is why I wanted to put Collingwood on the agenda following Brisbane, because I can't wait for this game Thursday. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker.
Yep.
And what Collingwood are doing defensively at the moment needs some recognition. Their points conceded after 5 weeks is Collingwood's second fewest after 5 weeks in over 50 years at the moment. So they are,
And we're in a high-scoring season.
they are red hot at the moment, which makes it fascinating coming up against a team who, despite their profile not being as strong as what it was last year, we all know that they can score and score quickly, like they did on the weekend. So what they're doing in terms of being able to shut you down with as soon as you win the footy, no one does that better than what Collingwood do at the moment. Their D50 is the third best in the competition. Denying the opposition scoring off turnover, which is 60% of the score, no one is harder to score against off turnover than what Collingwood are. So that, from a team perspective, red hot at the moment. That we did not see that at hardly any stage last year for Collingwood. They were clunky. They were doing bits and pieces okay, but they did not have that in their kit bag at all last year. The move of Darcy Moore to not take the opposition's best key forward is something that Brisbane did 2 years ago when Jack Payne started taking the best and letting Harris go. So Darcy Moore this year is back into the top 50 players in the competition. 21-on-1s he's had for the year, Darcy. He's lost once in those 21-on-1s. 30 intercepts in 3 weeks for Darcy.
Should he get the Sam Powell Pepper treatment?
That's back. That's potentially, but I'm not sure. Yeah, potentially Callum Archie can do that role. We've seen Callum Archie do that, but I'm just more big picture, just recognising what Collingwood are doing and the magnet move that they've made there.
Better get that information to Kane, I think, on Darcy Moore. Go so quickly before the break.
Okay, this team, after 5 weeks, they move the footy the third quickest in the competition. Who moves the footy the third quickest in the competition?
Okay.
Was who moves the ball, the team, third quickest? Now, what are you going to guess,
I am
Gerard?
going, just punching it into the computer, knowing the devious ways with which Hoyney works, I'm going to go Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Because I think most people don't think they're moving the ball well. My feeling with Melbourne is they're probably moving it much better than people think, but it's coming straight back out of their forward line.
See, you've got Gerard frazzled now because they're reading more into it than what
I'm reading the body language.
They're not
rather.
going gut feel. You're going with almost.
You know what he
the
is? He's very
least
straight to it
obvious.
tonight. He's not even doubting himself after a couple of weeks ago where he's still having nightmares.
No, I only doubted myself because you told poor Pie.
I did have played that one.
I'm going with Fremantle. Now I'm just looking at the text before you give the answer. There's a lot of love for Carlton and the Bulldogs in this area based on the texts.
Oh, I like our texters out there. So Carlton are actually the second fastest.
Second fastest.
I
Speed of ball
thought there
movement
was a bit of a
team
difference there.
in the comp, and the Dogs are actually the sixth quickest team in the competition. So our audience are knowledgeable. I like it.
But not the right answer, though.
Who's
Not the
number one
right
at the
answer.
moment? Is Saints still number one?
No, Geelong are number one. Geelong
Okay.
number one by a little bit.
this
Carlton come in number two. Lions are the fourth quickest. Crows fifth quickest, and then the Dogs are the sixth quickest. So number three. Well done, G. Well done, G. Well done, G.
There's
Yeah,
a
know
fist
how
pump.
I work. I think we talk too often. Just I might have to change up my thinking with
Change
this.
up the
This
comms.
It hasn't been a great start the year. This is week 5, and
Yeah.
it's been done 4 out of 5
Yeah.
times. So
Well, four and a half.
yeah, no, true, actually. Yeah. So Melbourne, third quickest team in the competition. Remember, we've got 3 aspects to it. The main reason as to why they are, with that third highest speed is that they distribute it quickly.
Yep.
So they get it and go
Get it and go.
quicker than most teams. They tend to go shorter than most teams, and it's mainly shorter towards goal. But they go and get rid of it quicker than most other teams in the competition. Their ability to be able to move it from one end of the ground to the other is the 5th best in the competition. And probably the frustration and probably why this might be a surprise to a lot of people is their inability to be able to score off that. So your ability to be able to move at one end of the ground to the other and then get it inside 50, you should be scoring almost 45, 50% of those chains because you're going inside 50 to space. They're not repeat entries where the ball's ping-ponging and going into congestion. A lot of the time for those transition entries, you're going into space. So Melbourne are actually scoring almost from 1 in 4 of those entries, not 1 in 2, 1 in 4 of those entries.
So they're 50% down on where they should be.
Correct. So that's probably why everyone gets frustrated. It's not necessarily their inability to be able to move it from one end of the ground to the other. It's their ability to be able to score off the back of those chains. We've all talked about this midfield group and what's going on there. And this is the reason why I wanted to bring up the Melbourne conversation. So in terms of getting their hands on the footy, they are plus 26 first possession on their opposition. So they've won first possession 26 times more than their oppo so far this year. Yet they are minus 36 clearances. So the swing of 62, we have never seen a bigger swing after 5 games of footy than what Melbourne have done.
So they're getting their hands on the ball and then they're losing it before they get it out of the clearance.
Correct, and they can't, and they're getting stripped. They can't then be able to explode and then get out of that.
Given
first
the names that are in there, it's hard to believe, Hoyney.
So, Gawn, Oliver, and Viney are all bottom 5 players in the competition for winning a first possession and converting that into a clearance chain. Okay, so we've all spoken about their raw clearances and what's going on there. Yeah, okay, yeah, that is bad, but they're getting their hands on the footy to start with. So they've got to be able to convert greater than what they're currently doing at the moment. That's all well and good. What do you do with that? And I thought that this guy might change his position this year, but I just want to put Caleb Windsor on the talking point.
Yep.
He has not attended one centre bounce in his career yet, okay, which is fine. He's 19, 20-year-old kid, taking pick 6, pick 7, playing a lot on the wing. They try to use him across halfback so far this year.
Hasn't really worked either.
So I'm looking at Windsor, and Kingy put this on the agenda Monday. These breakaway mids that you got to have them. So so now you look at Geelong this year. They got 2 of them. They got Holmes and Smith that can be able to explode. They got the workhorses in there, but you got to be able to get out. GWS, they can get out. Callahan can get out. Hawthorn, Will Day can get out. Newcomb can get out. You've got to be able to do that. I look at Windsor, and Melbourne will know this better than me. But I look at Windsor and I go, to me, he's got similar attributes to a Max Holmes.
Yep.
He's quick. He can get out. He's skillful, like a Holmes is. Holmes was taken because of his running ability. Windsor was taken as his running ability. Holmes started on the wing. Windsor started on the wing. Holmes' impact on the wing in his first 20 to 30 games, identical to Windsor and his impact in that same role. And then through bit of need and a bit of necessity with Selwood retiring, Guthrie getting injured, Duncan getting a bit older, they threw Holmes in. And now top 5 player in the comp last year, top 15 player in the comp this year, out and out superstar. What can this guy do? Can this guy be their Max Holmes version? Because people keep talking to me about Cozzy. Oh, Cozzy can be that player. He's trained in the midfield and whatever. Cozzy inside forward 50 is dangerous, and he did have impact on the weekend, but not as a permanent centre bounce player, I don't think. To just go in there in bits and pieces. But I think this guy could be, I'm not sure what you think, G.
Yeah, I like it.
I think this guy could be explored as that centre bounce midfielder to try and replicate what a Max Holmes type of midfielder is.
What I like about it is because he has got the leg speed to get out, but he's also got a much better, I suspect, strike rate of getting it out and hitting a target. No point getting it out and applying the kick along the Snake Baker philosophy, which they do. Petrarca does it. Oliver does it.
So to me, he looks like a 2025 player.
Yep.
And we talk about ball use determining 86% of matches.
Yep.
Ball winning determining 66% of matches. To me, he looks like a ball user that can impact games.
Yep.
So I'll just be interested to see Melbourne experiment with that particular magnet moving forward.
They've got to do something this week.
I was going to say,
Jack Viney has got to go tagging this week. He's got to give him some confidence somewhere.
All right, GWS.
So just want to put this on the agenda. So they're going okay. A bit like a lot of other teams. They're going okay with room for improvement.
Right.
We talked about Brisbane before,
RFIs.
Hawthorn before,
Yeah.
GWS before. It's round 5. Cool, your Jets, but they're going okay with room for improvement. But if you are coming up against GWS or if you're watching GWS, so another huge game this weekend against Adelaide. I think they're playing Adelaide this week, aren't they? Pretty sure. Well, we'll go with Adelaide for now if you tell me otherwise.
Yep.
Huge game against Adelaide, Saturday twilight. I'm pretty sure it is because I'm looking forward to that game. So if I'm wrong, Whitey, just correct me. But if you're watching GWS right now, and I always feel like as an opposition, as a team sitting back watching what someone's trying to do, the eyes are a dead set giveaway for what they're trying to do. And now that we've got this speed of ball movement stuff, which is really becoming a bit of a cheat sheet for how teams are trying to actually move the footy, you can't stop watching it. We have not, so we've got 7 years worth of this, speed of ball movement data to go back to. We have not seen a team as aggressive with their change of angle play than GWS since Richmond when they were winning their flags 7 years ago. So, and then you're watching it against St Kilda, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. This is telling us that they're really aggressive and they want to switch it and they want to change lanes, not short. They want to go long and get it out there. And you're seeing these halfback flankers, and as soon as they get the footy, their eyes are boom. What's out there? And the amount of times this season you've seen someone like a Darcy Jones just hovering 50 metres away on the other side of the play.
It's already there.
Get the footy, bang, they're out.
Yep.
Good luck trying to stop that kid. Brent Daniels, we saw Harvey Thomas on the weekend do that at stages. We're seeing Callaghan be able to get out and go the other side. We talked about Lockie Ash last week and his ability to be able to really significantly impact the game. He's doing it. Their ability to be able to get this footy and then just straight away look and be aggressive with what they do is Richmond, which we know the Richmond success that generated with that type of play, but we haven't seen someone as aggressive with what they're doing. Profile-wise at the moment, and, the inside 50 battle and the territory battle, we spoke about this at the start of the year. Get it in there, get it in there, get it in there. That's not 2025 footy anymore. GWS have actually conceded the fourth most entries in the competition. They're conceding around about 57 entries a game. They're generating 54, 55 themselves. So conceding the fourth most doesn't sound great, but they're getting almost equal opportunity because the ball moves in their game. But I wonder whether or not, and you guys might have a different answer, I wonder whether or not there's anyone who puts greater onus on their D50, on their actual immediate defensive 50 than what GWS do to their back six, back seven. And potentially they can do this because of just how good they are.
There's not one weak player there.
No, both as individuals and then as a collective.
And they got about
that
3 on the outside.
They can play this game. Because last year, you go to the final series, and we always look ahead to finals. You go to the final series last year, in the 9 finals, there's only one final last year where a team won inside 50s by double digits.
Right.
A lot of them were give or take. You have a turn, we have a turn. But we'll back our way, and that will determine the game. That's the GWS model that I reckon is a good model long term. How they want to move the footy, it's pretty obvious now. Just keep an eye on it.
All right, we've got to absolutely smash through the last two because there's a text saying, is Essendon going to get a mention at all? Well, here's your chance. But you've got
yes. No, Essendon are going to get a mention. So
only 30 seconds, though.
So just want to get them on a positive. So in terms of being able to win contest once the ball leaves that stoppage situation, number 2 team in the competition, Essendon. So hats off to that. And then hats off to this forward 50 group at the moment. So not getting sucked into this, to the actual wins and losses at the moment with Essendon. They're in a different stage of their development. But this forward 50 group looks a lot different to last year. Last year, Peter Wright in there, Nate Caddy in there, Langford, Draper, Stringer, they were quite tall in there. They're playing a bit more of a modern day forward 50 group with a lot more smalls, a lot more of a nimble forward line. And as a result, so far this year, 4 games in, 5 games in, they are the 6th best functioning forward 50 in the competition. They've still got work to do defensively, but just want to just give them a bit of credit for what they've been able to do in the post-clearance game and their forward 50.
And Port Adelaide?
Yeah, so Ken mentioned this first game after the Collingwood game, the debacle, and he mentioned they're working through a style shift, and he copped a bit of criticism for that. Oh, well, you can't play, you can't put a 90-point loss on that. Well, 5 weeks in, it is a considerably different profile and a different style that they're going with. Disposals, second most disposals in the comp. Last year, 6th fewest disposals in the competition. No one handballs the footy more than what Port Adelaide do. Last year, they wanted to kick the footy more than what most teams did. only GWS gains more metres by hand this year than what Port Adelaide do. Port Adelaide were about 200 metres per game by hand. This year they're close to 450, which is a significant increase. Their ability to not rely on corridor v Hawthorn was almost halved compared to what we've seen for Port Adelaide for the last 2.5 years. The last 2.5 years, it's almost just been we'll throw it in there, and then we'll back ourselves to eventually win it. We'll back ourselves to get through. That's how we want to play.
Kick it to King Charlie.
Correct. And then it becomes a little bit, sort of predictable. So just a little bit of credit to what Ken and the coaches have actually done this year with a bit of a style shift. And it's a different Port Adelaide profile to what we've seen.
Are we going to fast money over these next 3 or 4 minutes? Hoyney, who did they miss?
Can I just give a quick shout out to that texter before, Jack Silvani? So 14 one-on-ones he's been in this year, lost once.
Okay.
Jack.
People are saying moving forward, leave the boy alone.
Our audience is on
on
point today. I like it. So
he's
well
got
educated.
good genes.
Yeah. So Brad Close, Thursday night, third highest rated player on the ground, second highest rated game of his career. Didn't get a vote from his coaches. If you want to know why Brad Close's such a good footballer, watch that kick at the end to Jeremy Cameron. Just how creative that little bloke is. Someone for Essendon, Archie Roberts, going along quite well. Third.
Rising star nomination during the week.
Oh, was he?
Yep.
Yeah, good. So third highest rated player on the ground. Only 8 games in, but you can already see he is a ball user, which is where the game is going. So nice there for Essendon. Jager O'Meara, second highest rated player on the ground against Richmond, back to that, having that balance of that wing centre bounce role as opposed to a pure tagger like he tried to do against Libba the week before. Our man Harvey Thomas didn't get a vote from the coaches. Fifth highest rated player on the ground. We're just talking off air. He is an Adam Kingsley player, I think.
He's not getting a vote.
Just keep an eye on that. Okay. Quick, nimble, and creative and tough.
And he plays in the Oz kick at halftime and still gets a game for the Giants as well.
Moving on.
And then for Hawthorn on Sunday night, James Sicily was the only person to get a vote for the Hawks, but thought Lloyd Meek was actually their third highest rated player. It was actually the third highest rated player on the ground. Didn't get a vote. One of his best games, the best game for his 2025 campaign. So good signs there for the Hawks with Lloyd getting back to having an impact.
MDB, B?
As opposed to the MIP.
Yes. So most impactful player for the weekend overall was Nosai Wanganeen-Malira. His ball use is just pure. So highest rated player for the weekend. Best ball user for the weekend, also Nosai, so well done there.
Well played, Nosai.
Max Gawn had the most impact of any player for the weekend with how they actually won the footy, so Max, well done.
Well played, Max.
And defensive actions, we just spoke about this bloke before, but Darcy Moore, no one impacted the game through their defensive actions more than Darcy Moore.
Okay, Gem and Horror.
Over the weekend. So the Gem. So Gold Coast were able to score 42 points off their intercepts in that halfback area. We talk about how important that halfback area is. Second most in club history. So they've been able to sort of get that game going, hopefully moving forward for Gold Coast. And then I just wanted to throw this in there for you, G, because I know you love Ruckman. For those that don't know, he loves the Ruckman debate, the hit-out debate, the hit-out to disadvantage debate. Bailey Williams on Saturday, 1 hit-out to advantage. 17 to disadvantage.
What's he doing in the road?
That's the second worst differential ever in a game of footy. I could have actually
who's got the worst?
Could have thrown up another 15 , 20 things for the West Coast, but I just want to throw up, know your audience who you're talking to. I thought, Gerard, you might actually appreciate that one.
Hit-outs to disadvantage.
Hit-out to disadvantage.
The only thing as champion don't deduct as many points for a disadvantage as they add for an advantage. How you work that out is beyond me, but nevertheless.
You can hit up Carl Jackson about that. Feedback's everything, G. So we'll take that on board.
Okay.
How do you go tonight, your man?
Oh, he's on the podium again. It's only a question whether it's bronze, silver, or gold.
On the podium.
He's on the podium. He's strong early.
Yeah. And you're tipping Collingwood to beat Brisbane?
No, I'm not necessarily tipping Collingwood to beat. I reckon it's all about. Well, no, we don't tip. We're just putting it on watch. It'll be a fascinating game of footy. There's a lot of fascinating games of footy this weekend of footy. Like the Adelaide GWS will be really intriguing.
Who are you tipping there?
No, don't tip.
No, I think I actually don't know. Adelaide GWS. Geelong Hawthorn will be a cracker Monday. Yeah. Bulldogs, and then your mob, G, Sydney Port Sunday. Yes. Really interesting as well.